We are learning more about the 238 Venezuelan men that the Trump administration recently deported to El Salvador. The Trump administration claims all of them are connected to Venezuelan gangs, but has not provided any evidence to that. Venezuela's interior minister said on a podcast today that, quote, none of the men are tied to a Venezuelan gang, also saying what's happening in El Salvador is the establishment of a concentration camp. Anyone who agrees with what the U.S. and El Salvador are doing is a barbarian. Let's bring in CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez. Camilo, we also understand we have a list of names of those men who were deported. What do you know?
Hi, Liz. Yes, we obtained the entire list of everyone who was sent to El Salvador last weekend from Venezuela, and we know that there are about 230 deportees on this list, specifically 238 Venezuelan men who were deported from the U.S., and many of them were actually expelled from the country under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. That is that wartime legal authority that the Trump administration has cited to try to summarily arrest and detain Venezuelan migrants here in the U.S. who are allegedly part of this Tren de Aragua transnational gang. But that is, of course, now at the subject of not only a legal fight in federal court with the judge barring these removals for the time being, and also asking the Justice Department whether the administration knowingly defied his order to turn around the deportation planes last weekend. But it has also now turned into a broader fight between the administration, the U.S. government, and the relatives and lawyers of these deportees, Liz, because while the administration is accusing these 238 men of being part of this notorious transnational organization, their lawyers and relatives say that they are non-criminal migrants who were, in some cases, yes, in the U.S. illegally, but were not part of any criminal organization. And the U.S. government has said that not everyone on those deportation flights had criminal records, but they have said that everyone was part of Tren de Aragua, which is, of course, an accusation list that now the relatives and the Venezuelan government is disputing.
Yeah, they're saying there's no evidence to prove that. So any idea, Camilo, of how they're identifying these individuals and arresting them or taking them into custody and then sending them on that plane? Any idea of how they're finding them? Is it through social media?
That really is a critical question in this story, Liz. We know, according to one sworn declaration by a current top ICE official, that the government relies on a variety of techniques to identify migrants in deportation proceedings as potential or suspected gang members. One of those techniques relies on looking at international and domestic criminal databases for intelligence or criminal records that suggest that somebody may be part of a gang. They also rely on interviews with current or former gang members, as well as the victims of potential gang members, to make these accusations. But yes, they also rely, Liz, heavily on tattoos and social media activity that the migrants have or have posted online. And so that is what is really concerning to the relatives of the deportees and other advocates who say that this is a slippery slope to try to identify migrant gang members, potential migrant gang members, through tattoos, because, as you know, tattoos don't necessarily imply that somebody is in a gang. So this is something that will continue to be contested in not only federal court, but now on the world stage as this story continues to garner international attention.
Yeah, Camilo, I want to pivot to another immigration story. Migrant flights to Guantanamo Bay have resumed. Last week, the Trump administration, quote, emptied out the facility, as they say. What can you tell us about the back and forth between this?
Two U.S. officials tell CBS News, Liz, that the Trump administration has indeed resumed migrant detainee flights to the naval base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And that base, of course, is now at the center of this effort by the Trump administration to convert that facility there into a massive detention center. President Trump has talked about housing as many as 30,000 migrant detainees at Guantanamo Bay. That, of course, has not materialized, but the administration but the administration rather has housed several hundred detainees there. Most of them have been deported to their home countries or have been transferred to the U.S. mainland. As you noted last week, the administration emptied out the holding facilities, but now there are a new groups of migrants, I should say, at that facility. There was a plane yesterday that carried about 21 detainees, and we are told that more planes are on the way this week.
All right, CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez. Thank you so much, Camilo.